Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm CJ.
I'm Chip.
And we have an interesting show for you today. I'm going to jump right on the boat here, and I'm going to start sailing down the Community Development River. A letter was sent to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and they requested an audit and a look over of the Community Development Agency's Community Development Block Grant funding. 70% of that money is supposed to go to programs which benefit low-income and underprivileged citizens of Fall River. And questions were asked at a city council meeting 2 weeks ago of Michael Dion of why certain money was spent in certain ways and how is it benefiting those low-income people. Specifically, what was asked was about the $380,000 that's given to the Fall River Office of Economic Development. And his answer to me was that 500 jobs were created by the Fall River Office of Economic Development. I said, but what about the 5,000 jobs that were lost? And he said, that's not what they have to look at. They have to look at how they've succeeded. Well, you can't have success without failure in this case. They may have produced 500 jobs, but they haven't produced any long-standing jobs, and there's no stability. Mr. Dion told me at that meeting that his office has an open door policy, and he'd be more than happy to sit down with us at any time to look over his books and see where the money's going and how it's spent, et cetera, which I said, okay, fine. The Citizens Alliance for Accountability in Government had received a copy of a letter that was sent. It is the policy of the Citizens Alliance, as it is with Spindle City Straight Talk, for any tipsters that give information that we don't reveal their name or their address or any information about them in order to protect their privacy and not subject them to any type of retribution. What was posted on Facebook about this letter was directly sent and pointed at me, all the comments, and that I'm spreading misinformation. I should check out my facts. My office is open. The phone number was made available, including his cell phone. And so I did that. I went to the Community Development Office in room 414 in Government Center on Tuesday, April 15th, tax day. And he had not gotten out of a department head's meeting. And he did tell me that there was a department head's meeting. I left a note leaving my name, my email address, and my phone number to call me at to schedule a time which is available so that I may sit down and go over the supposed misinformation that I have. I have yet to hear back from the Community Development Agency or Mr. Dion. In full disclosure with Mr. Dion, I do believe Mr. Dion knows his job. I firmly believe that he's probably one of the most honest people in the city of Fall River offices. And as the CDA director and chief financial officer, I don't have any qualms with what he has done. I have a qualm with the way the money is being spent. And remember, the money is spent the way they see fit. We also had a problem with the fact that many people in the city did not know that the Community Development Agency had public hearings. And they said, well, we posted it in the paper and we took ads out on WSAR. Well, number one, a lot of people no longer get their news from a newspaper. They don't subscribe. And the number of subscribers from the Herald News and other newspapers are dwindling across the country. As for WSAR, a lot of people don't listen to the WSAR show with Perry Long on it. By the way, who is paid with, now I've been told, some CDA money. And his show on WSAR is paid for with CDA money. And I was advised by Mr. Dion via his public postings on the internet that when Mr. Long was hired, there was no citizen requirement for it. But I do believe, Mr. Dion, that there was a low-income component that had to be met. And Mr. Long never met that requirement. And I may be wrong on that, but a person who had applied for that said there was a low-income component to it, and there was also a citizen requirement component to it. And because he had threatened I guess, a lawsuit or something, the mayor found him a job somewhere else. So we have a question. Why so much of an uprising in regards to a letter sent to HUD? And now, in full disclosure, which has never been made on the internet or anywhere else, I generated the letter to Housing and Urban Development, and I have no problem saying that. And there are many things that this news organization does generate for our U.S. senators, our U.S. congressmen, our state senators, and our state congressmen. We generate information for them, and they call us regularly and ask about it. City councilors were calling this morning to Chip or myself and asking for information. And they may have gotten it, they may not have. But we're here to make sure that the truth is presented. And if we're wrong, we always do a retraction, and we do it just as vocally as we do here on the show. But again, I have that question. And Chip, I felt like I was being attacked. It felt like, you're a bad boy.
Well, sometimes, the old adage is the best defense is a good offense. And when they begin to get this sensitive about questions, because I think a lot of the issues that you posed were more in the form of questions than in blanket statements. And the reality is the system is broken. When a system says that we've created 500 jobs, and if we lose 5,000, that's irrelevant, because we only look at jobs created, not jobs lost, the system is obviously broken, and we need to do something about it. The fact is, if we look at these 500 jobs that have been created, over what period of time? And most of them probably are in new Chinese restaurants and pizza places delivering pizza. The reality is, what good-paying jobs have been created in Fall River in the last decade? And if there were any, they're gone. And the fact is that, the system doesn't work. And the fact is that the CDA is supposed to basically be geared to service the people who from the lower socioeconomic strata. The fact is that that organization is supposed to help people who don't have the financial means to do some things. And a lot of the things that they do, while being well-intentioned, I think it's a legitimate question to say, if 70% of your money is supposed to be used for low income, why are some of these programs basically generic programs that appeal to a large cross-section of the population, and income has nothing to do with it? I believe one of those things was something about battered women or abuse, and senior centers. Well, people who don't fall into the economic bracket that they're supposed to service go to senior centers. Also, the fact of spousal abuse is something that transcends economic, position. There are doctors who abuse their wives as well as people who don't make a lot of money. So these programs are very good, but the fact is, when a organization is being funded for a very, very specific purpose to service people with the lower incomes, and they're not applying the money that they get for the reason they're getting it, well, then we have an issue. Just as I have an issue, I think there was a residency requirement also about the job that Perry Long got, in addition to an economic piece. So there are a lot of questions, and sometimes when people, their hackles raise very quickly, it's because you're asking questions that they don't really want to answer.
I agree, and the thing is that, Mr. Dion made it very clear that Perry Long had no need for a residency requirement. And that's okay, fine, but he wasn't low income. The other problem I had is the fact that the Fall River Office of Economic Development gives money to outside the city of Fall River, Somerset, Swansea, Westport, and they say, well, that's because we do Greater Fall River now. But $380,000 is given to them to meet their budgetary needs. And you're not going to tell me that some of that $380,000 wasn't used in Somerset, Swansea, Westport, or anywhere else. Because if the office staff is processing these applications, some of that money went to pay their salary. I'm sorry, then you can't do it. You cannot be doing that. And they just don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that they have to be accountable for their funds.
Well, I think there also begs the question of that if they are servicing, number one, the name should be changed to the Greater Fall River Office of Economic Destruction. But the other thing is that if we are providing services to Somerset, Swansea, Westport, or any other community, they should be paying some of the freight. We should not be paying all the money. You know, how much does Somerset and Swansea and Westport put in to help defray some of the costs of operating the thing? No, it's all Fall River. The city with the least economic ability to pay is footing the whole bill. So, I mean, you know, this is another case of government, you know, being, you know, fiscally irresponsible and not giving one iota of care about how much it costs, because it's not their money, and the answer always is to raise taxes and fees. The hell with the public. We don't care how much it costs. We can be as inefficient and incompetent as we would like to be. We can waste money, you know, by the barrel full, because it's not our money.
And that's a shame. It really is. I mean, it looks as though, you know, that Fall River doesn't care about its people. And with that, we move on to the fact that, you know, ordinance just met, and they want to raise the fees again from the Water and Sewer Department. Didn't we just do this 6 months ago?
Yeah.
I mean, this is amazing. It's like every 6 months, Terry Sullivan's going to come in, Mr. I know it all, but you know, the regulations are changing too fast and I can't keep up with them. And I need another raise of fees. I need to get some more money. I mean, what's going on here?
Well, what's going on, again, is a total insensitivity to the plight of the taxpayer and the citizens of Fall River. They continue to just take every single penny, and they wonder why people leave the city, why they can't frequent restaurants and keep businesses afloat. You know, we presented the statistics at the council, and I did, that said that a city with almost our size that had the highest you know, family income and the lowest amount of people below the poverty level had the highest number of businesses. Well, it correlates. The more money people have to spend, the better chance of businesses being successful. But this city seems to just, we continue to just raise taxes, raise fees. And I believe now we're looking at a 450% increase over the past 5 years. That's just mind-boggling. In a city that has the second lowest household income of a city of our size in the state, and we are raising the costs of living in this city by 450%. That is just, it is inconceivable. I don't know, you know, there's going to be nobody left in Fall River except the very rich and the people who are on public assistance, because everybody who is capable of leaving this city will ultimately leave this city, because it's it is catastrophic what's happening to this city.
And, you know, I have to laugh about it because people like Rob Mellion come forward, and we need to remarket Fall River. We need to, you know, put the image out there that Fall River is a good place to do business, a good place to live. How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? They went for a home rule petition to knock down Watuppa Heights, and now they want to put 100, 150 units back there? I mean, you know, Representative Alan Sylvia said, it'll be over my dead body when it happens. I turned around and told him, where do I put the coffin? Because you know it's going to happen. Because nobody wants it in their backyard, you know, north of 128. So they want to ship them all down to Fall River and New Bedford. Why is that Fall River and New Bedford always has to be the dumping ground for the poor and needy? Why? Because we've allowed it. Over the years, we've allowed it, going all the way back to Carlton Viveris. So this isn't a new task. It's nothing special, but we see it all the time.
Well, I mean, it shows that you've always kept abreast of the issues, that you go back to Carlton, because, you know, Carlton Viveris' administration created this problem, because when he gave his brother the directorship of the Housing Authority, he gave him a very lucrative contract which had a clause that gave him a bonus based on occupancy, and the higher occupancy he got, the greater bonus he got. So from that administration on, they have actively solicited people to come to Fall River. People just don't come to Fall River because it's a garden spot of the state. You know, we are sent people because the housing director wants people here. They can say what they want, and as Shakespeare once said, doth protest too much. But the fact is, they want low-income people here because the people who work in a housing authority make more money. The director gets more money. And the fact is, Boston doesn't care because Boston feels that this is where they belong. This is their home because all the poor folk live down here, and they're making every effort to make us all poor.
You know, but the thing is, we don't make it any better for ourselves, and neither do our elected officials, because they go saying, please, sir, may I have another, to the state all the time. You know, I need more local aid. I need more Chapter 70 money. I need more Chapter 90 money. I need more this. I need more grants. You know, it's I need. You know, but we never hear about what can we give them, and that makes it difficult.
No, you're 100% right. You know, the fact is that we're looked upon as the welfare cases of the state because we always go begging to the feds, to the state for money. We probably have more subsidized workers in this city than any other place in the state because of the fact that we're always looking for a handout. Look at the fire department. Look at the issue we're having with the fire department. We have, you know, a whole bunch of police officers on grants. We have, you know, we're looking for grants and bonds, and we never pay our bills. We beg for everything, and then we condemn other people who are on welfare when, in fact, our public officials try to keep us on the public dole. They never saw a decision that they couldn't duck out of. You know, they won't do what's necessary. I haven't seen a cut in the fat in a decade in this city. We just keep getting more and more political jobs. I mean, you know, the school department's like a giant vacuum cleaner. Their budget never goes down. The education doesn't get any better, yet the budget continues to go up and we get more and more new positions and ridiculous positions like deans of students and coaches, you know, and all these things. And they're all getting paid tremendous salaries. There are secretaries in the school department making $63,000 a year, when a clerk in City Hall is making 28. I mean, you know, and nobody does anything. The school committee, they just keep going, well, you know, we need the money, we're gonna throw money at it, but they're not throwing, they're throwing our money at it and state money, and they're digging a hole and digging a hole. No public official has had the courage to stand up and say, let's reorganize this city, let's cut all the fat, and let's earmark the money for essential services, and let's get back to the basics.
Well, you know, the basics would just upset everyone. You know that. Meg Mayo Brown has said that the Fall River School Department is now so specialized and so conditional that they need all these jobs, because without them, nobody would know how to keep up with the system. And it's because of all these extra jobs that the system is doing so well. Yeah, you know how well the system's doing? They finally just changed the passing grade from 60 to 65. I mean, there's something wrong, you know, something stinks in Denmark, to put it bluntly, and it's not the cheese.
Yeah, well, I mean, the school department is, I mean, we could do like 10 shows in a row on the school department.
It's sad.
It's sad, but, you know, there are too many chiefs and not enough Indians. We, you know, we've got deans of students, we've got principals, assistant principals, assistant to the assistants, yet we have children walking out of the school. We've got all these bodies here, they couldn't take attendance. We had that fiasco a year or so ago where they, you know, they couldn't figure out that nobody was coming to class. And we've got so many people, they can't actually identify that there's nobody in school. I don't know why we have all these tiers, but complexity, sometimes you can make things overly complex. You can make things overly burdensome, and you can't function. You need sometimes you need lean, hard system, and that's what we need. We're not delivering, all the things that we've created now have not been directed at delivering classroom education. It's about administrative jobs. We still have we probably have the highest administrator to teacher ratio in the state, and this is, again, what happens. And we can move from the school side to the city side, the same thing happens, and the people are the people who are the victims. You know, they're just making Fall River a place that nobody wants to live in, and realistically, we'll call everybody out. It's our fault, because we continue to vote these clowns in. You know, how could anyone vote for this mayor when we're still paying a rainwater tax that he said in his first term was illegal. His second term, he began by appointing a lieutenant to the fire department that was totally unqualified. Then he begins his third term with so many, well, the landfill, the privatization. I mean, there's just so many issues now that, you know, this is like a nuclear explosion of things. And so this is what we got. And then we elect councilors that walk in lockstep with him, and we wonder why we can't change the city. We've got virtually a 5-4 vote on anything, and no matter how counterproductive it is, it will get through to city council, and that is what has to change.
But that did happen, 9-0. They got the money for North Park, illegally, mind you, but they got the money for North Park. I even spoke to the Mass State Building Association about it. And they pulled out the plans and said, well, a park was never included in that plan. I said, no, it wasn't. I said, but the mayor is using the argument that because the park is next to the school, the students will use the park. Therefore, we can use the money that we bonded for the school that's left over for the park. So we bonded for the park without bonding for the park. So that nobody can say we bonded for the park because they'd already bonded for it. But it's also illegal because 80% of the money was used to fund the school. So I asked MSBA, and they said, we only gave them 80% of the construction costs of the school. Okay, so if you gave them 80%, and the city has money left over from those construction costs, who lied to who? Does that make sense?
Well, you know, I think we had a little program on that, Laura, that said very clearly it has to be specific, the bond. And, you know, the mayor is reaching when he's trying to say, well, you know, because it's near a school, the school children are going to use it. Well, last time I checked when you're in school, they don't let you wander off to the park. I mean, they may have phys ed, and they can walk them over to a park, but realistically, it's not part of education. I mean, a public park may not be the place you want to bring school children.
Correct.
I mean, because you don't know what is there in a public park. It's not a controlled environment. And my children are both grown up and well educated, but I'll tell you what, I would have a problem if they were walking my kids over to a public park every day, because the fact is that, hey, you have a facility in that school. We spend millions of dollars to create a school environment. So let's create a total environment for our students. And, you know, the bottom line is the city council, again, showed its lack of courage, because you had a few people and a few political heavy hitters that were in the audience that were pushing this park, and they managed to figure out a way they could say they were going to get the park and make it justifiable, say it's not really costing us anything. Well, it is costing us something, because that money should have been used and could have been used for what it was intended to be used for.
Exactly. But, you know, we had these cost overruns at Durfee 35 years ago, all right? And money was left over that, you know, was used for other things. And then all of a sudden, Durfee's falling apart 35 years later, a building that should have lasted 100 years. The old Durfee is over on Rock Street. It's still standing. It's been hundreds of years already. Over 100 years. Come on, get real. So when we cut corners everywhere and we've got $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 left over, let's spend it somewhere else. All you did was gyp the taxpayer in the future, because when that school has to be rebuilt again, what do? You've already bonded. And it's very interesting when you look at the law, it actually dictates how long you can bond for certain things. 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. I mean, so, you know, things need to be looked at very, very carefully, I'll tell you.
Well, you were right, CJ, and we could do an entire program about buildings in this city and how they've never, ever been built properly, on time, or under budget. And if they are under budget, somebody got the money. But I think it's time for your commentary.
Yes, it is, and it's going to be interesting. I'm opening this very clearly with the fact that I'm not usually a well-liked man, and that is devastating. My heart bleeds. You know, I cry at night going to sleep about it. They say, you know, you're so negative, you don't do anything right. Why? Because I called you out on your job? Because I called you out as a taxpayer? I just did my taxes. I waited until yesterday to put them in the mail. I was so devastated by what taxes did to me last year. And I'm not talking federal, I'm talking my city taxes. My property tax, my water fee, my sewer fee, unbelievable amount of taxes. To the point of a $12,000 deduction on my house, just from taxes. It's a lot of money. Doesn't mean I paid $12,000 in taxes, just resulted in a $12,000 reduction because I had to make sure my house was also kept up to code. So I had to put new windows in and everything else. And that's fine because those are necessary items. And that's how I look at my house. These are necessary. But when you walk into City Hall, you look around and you say, was that necessary? Was that necessary? I walked into the elevators. I saw new walls, new floor, a nice big seal on the wall of the city of Fall River. And I'm like, who paid for this? Where was the contract? Where did they get the money? Is this another one of those things where the money was for somewhere else, so we're going to move it over here? And you start looking at the floors and the walls, and there's now construction going on in the lobby of City Hall because they had to do it. We need to know. We need to know why this has not been coming forward. Why aren't people talking about it? The mayor went on the radio and he said that he liked Ken Pacheco's plan for waste management, but there were too many problems with it. And while looking at privatization, he understands that 75 people will be out of work. That kind of says something already. He said Ken Pacheco's plans has some flaws, but privatization will only result in 75 people being laid off. 75 people will be out of work. And we have to realize that it will devastate 75 families. That's 75 less people working in Fall River. But we have strong suspicion, the unwritten whisper campaign going on, that privatization is going to happen. And we're sorry to see that, but truth be told, I think we know that's going to happen. And I think a lot of the workers from DCM know that's going to happen. This is what your city is becoming. There's pages on Facebook asking for the recall of the mayor, recall of the city council. There's people posting growing up in Fall River saying that, the mayor's not doing right, and they get banned from the site because the people who run that site are, supporters of the mayor. They don't want to hear negativity, yet they'll blast anybody that says anything. A revolution has started. A revolution is formed. And we're at the forefront of this revolution. And there's an old saying, a revolutionist makes the changes, but if they fail, they're called traitors. Let's make the changes. Let's make Fall River a better place. Let's stop talking about taking land by eminent domain for a park when the legal counsel for the organization that owns that land, mainly the Diocese of Fall River, has already said, I'll be available on May 6th. But Emeril Gaudet goes out and says, no, we need to start eminent domain now. And then he gets everyone on that committee to start talking about we're going to do eminent domain now. That's wrong. Let's work with the city. Let's work as a community. Let's make the city a better place to live so that we have what we need and we're not being taxed to death to do it. The old saying of don't tread on me, well, don't tread on me because I'm tired of it. And you may not like me and you may not agree with everything I have to say, but I'm always willing to sit down with you and talk to you, and we'll come to an agreement. Sometimes that agreement is to agree to disagree, but we'll come to an agreement. Thank you.
And be careful, there are surveillance cameras in the elevators.